Welcome back to Talking Knicks, PPP, player profile and projections. Today, we've got a unique one. We're doing a grab bag episode with what looks to be like the end of the Knicks bench. And knowing the Knicks, a couple of these guys are probably going to get a lot of run. So, let's run through it. I'm joined today by the brothers Doom and Groom. I'll start with Gregory, Sir Gregory Poon. Greg, how you doing?
Doing well, Jake. Had an eventful weekend. I saw Tracy Morgan. He's a funny guy.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, you might see him getting some burn on the Knicks this year.
That's first hot take of the podcast. We'll flip it to Big Bro Kenny Poon. Ken, how you doing?
Doing well, Jake. Thanks for having me again. I'm always excited to be here. I just got back from my last wedding of the year, so just really hanging out now. Looking forward to just a few nice, relaxing weekends.
So you didn't see Tracy Morgan?
I didn't see Tracy Morgan, sadly.
Then we don't care about your weekend at all.
Understandable.
But what we do care about is Los Knicks. As I mentioned, this will be a grab bag episodes of sorts, and it's kind of a funny thing in basketball. I mean, you're going to have 15 guys on the roster. You might have a couple guys come and go. The Knicks have a couple wild cards out there that we felt as a crew they didn't deserve a full player profile, but they have to be talked about because these are guys that are going to get some run, including our favorite Ron Baker, who, again, I saw his only start last year in Denver because his family was there. But he's someone who needs to be mentioned because there's going to be games where Ron Baker gets some run because he's giving some hustle. He's giving you some defense. We'll circle back to him. Let's I want to start, and this is probably the guy that should be the main conversation, or maybe not the main conversation, but I think there's been a recent turn, on Reddit lately, and amongst the Talkin' Knicks crew a little bit, and it's Manny Mudiay. This guy was formerly a top draft pick. He was the 7th pick overall in the 2015 draft, just 3 years ago? He's on the Knicks now. We traded for him last year. He came over. He kind of did Manny Mudiay stuff. He was like 8 points, 3 assists, 2 boards. A couple games where you see it and you're like, okay, this could be something. Then a couple other games where you're like, what are you doing, fella? So I will mix it up. I'm going to Kenny first this time. He wants the ball. He's going to get it. Kenny, talk to me about your thoughts on Manny.
Manny Mudiay. So he's an interesting guy. I know he was the guy a lot of Knicks fans wanted over Porzingis that year in the draft. He went to Denver. I think he might have started the first year he was there. He played okay for a rookie point guard and then gradually lost favor. He's one of those guys that he got traded to the Knicks and he's kind of given a second chance, but he wasn't in a particularly good situation with Hornacek, and 3 or 4 other point guards that he's playing against. So his stats when he got to the Knicks kind of took a step backwards. He is an interesting guy though because he has a lot of talent. He's a very well-built point guard. He's a big point guard and he's got some decent athleticism. He hasn't been able to put his shot together yet, but he's shown flashes over periods of time. The first half of last year, he shot it pretty well, and then after he got traded, his shot kind of fell off a little bit. But this is a guy that's going to get his opportunities this year. And under Fizdale, Fizdale came in and said that he had, he was going to fix the things that were wrong with Mudiay, which is kind of a mixed message, kind of a backhanded compliment. But I think the Knicks fans have turned on him way too quickly because we haven't seen enough from him. Last year it was a bad situation, and in the summer league he's played bad, but it's in the summer league. He's definitely trimmed down, so he's putting in work, and I have to believe that at some point that's all going to come together for him. So I'm excited to see what he brings to the table throughout this year.
Yeah, Jake, I'm looking at these stats, and his shooting percentages are so unbelievably bad. It's pretty wild. So, I mean, everybody obviously knows he can't really shoot the three. But if you can't shoot the three, you better be able to finish. But he can't. He doesn't seem to be able to do that particularly well either. He's able to get to the rim. He just doesn't finish it. But in his first 3 seasons, his shooting percentages overall are 36.4%, 37.7%, and 38.8%. So he's getting better, but it'd be tough to get worse. But I mean, I like the guy. I got no problem being patient based on where the Knicks are at this point in time, and I'd rather see him on the court than Ron Baker. So I think he could get minutes on this team. I'm all for the guy. Like Kenny said, you see good stuff. You know there's potential there, but he really hasn't put it all together. But
yeah,
again, still only 21.
I liked what Kenny said when he talked about Woodson, someone that he already has his eye on him, and he's talking about things you can fix on him, which is almost like having a girlfriend and being like, yeah, I can fix some stuff about her. Like, okay, let me know how that conversation goes. But in Ken, I will send it back to you. The guy started 66 games as a 19-year-old and put up 13, 5.5, and 3.5, which, again, some bad percentages, but there's some being a young point guard. I mean, we used to play this game a lot where you dig up young stats on guys like Tyreek Evans and some other point guards who did stuff at an early age and either did or didn't pan out. But it's interesting because you think he could be a mismatch against smaller point guards and he'd have an advantage against two guards, but it seems like he doesn't have the advantage on anyone, Kenny.
So, yeah, and I don't want to spend too much time on him. I know we're got a lot of people to cycle through, but like you said, 19-year-old rookie a few years ago, and now he's only 22. And watching the games, he has athleticism, and he gets to the rim, and then he just misses the shot and tries to draw the foul, but doesn't. So he's both missing the shot and not drawing the foul. If he could either finish the shot or draw the foul, then he's looking like a much better player. And also, I don't know how much it's saying given the current Knicks roster, but he might be the best passing player on the Knicks. So I have to imagine he's going to get some run there at point guard.
Yeah, that's interesting, Ken. And it will be interesting to see how all that stuff plays out because Trey Burke does seem like almost the scoring point guard. Frank is going to be the utility knife of sorts. You wonder if they try to put Manny in kind of that role, if he plays a lot of one, if he plays a lot of two. But let's move on from Manny. And I guess, you know what, let's keep it in the backcourt for now. And it's a guy that we may be yelling about deserves minutes from Moutier on some nights and a guy that will be saying, why is he getting minutes? And we got to talk about handsome Ron Baker. And I won't even set it up. I'll just pass it to you, Greg. What do the people need to know?
I'll pass it right back to you, Jake. No. Ron Baker. I'm not a big Ron Baker guy. His offense leaves a lot to be desired. He can't shoot either. He's like, let's see. Let's look it up together. He shot 33.9% from the field last year.
Is that good or bad?
It's bad. That's very bad. And he had that one start in Denver where you were. But that's just such an unbelievably bad shooting percentage. It's hard to say much more. I mean, he can play defense enough, but I mean, you don't really see him guarding the good players on the other team because he's not in when those players are in. So I don't know. I can't draw much. I don't really like Ron Baker. I can't get much more into it than that. But he did wish my friend Trent a happy birthday in a video message. So I would like to hang out with Ron Baker. I just wouldn't like him on my favorite basketball team. That's
pretty fair, Greg. Kenny, what do you got on Ron? I mean, is he last year 29 games played, 13.3 minutes. Again, it's spark plug kind of a little bit of passing, a little bit of driving, a little bit of defense, but is he just kind of the boys are sleepwalking tonight, throw Ron in there to shake it up or what?
Yeah, I think that's kind of his best case scenario. He's really an end of the bench guy. Knicks fans love him way too much. And this is something that we've said amongst ourselves before. It's something that my cousin once said about Shane Larkin is that I appreciate I appreciate how hard he tries. I don't appreciate how much he sucks. Because, like Greg said, he's terrible on offense. He's a pretty good defender, but we haven't really seen him against the best offensive players on other teams. Like we've seen Frank go head-to-head with like Kyrie Irving and James Harden and like hold his own. So you know that Frank's flashes are against, star power, whereas Ron's coming in at the end of the game and guarding whoever's in at the end of the game, blowout loss. So I get it. He's just not that good. And if Tom were here, I know we had this conversation. He'd bring up he's now writing for the B-Ball Index. That's actually where he is tonight. He's busy writing an article for them. But we had him look into how Ron Baker grades out against all other guards in a bunch of different areas. They talk about, playmaking, passing, distributing, defense, a whole litany of areas. And what the stats came back as is he was an A- defender, and everything else was either a D or an F. So, he's a solid defender, but that does not make up for the other shortcomings in his game, which is every other area of the game. And it's like you said, if they're sleepwalking, throw him out there because he's going to try hard and maybe you'll get a spark. But as a pure basketball player, I'm just not a fan.
After a while, if everything outside of defense is a shortcoming, those aren't shortcomings. That's just you not being great at basketball. So, well, we're sorry, Ron, if you're listening. We appreciate you, but it's a crowded backcourt, and I think finishing off the backcourt and sending it back to you, Ken, because it's someone you love, and we'll make this a little happier. It's your boy, Damian Dotson. He's last year's second-round pick. He had some moments last year. He didn't get a ton of run. 44 games played, about 11 minutes per game. Kenny, tell me about your boy.
And Dame Dot is an interesting guy, and I think we're going to be able to say this about a few people here because he's a guy that's projecting right now, based on how the preseason went, to not play a ton. But he could be a guy who, in his limited minutes, shows something. He works his way up, and he ends up being a full-time rotation piece. I know in the preseason games, he had a couple really good games, albeit he was mostly doing that in garbage time. I think in the first preseason game, he ended up scoring 9 points in the fourth quarter in overtime, which is pretty good. Last year, he had a couple of really good games. He had a 30-point game with 11 rebounds, and he had, I think he had another double-double with 11 and 10 or something like that. So he's shown flashes of being able to do things in this league. And the comparison that I've made throughout kind of his tenure as a Knick is I want to see him develop as a Danny Green type, as a guy who his whole role with the Knicks is to play defense and to hit threes. And if he can score a little bit outside of that, like he showed in a couple of the games, like his 30-point game, then that's a bonus. But on this team, he's not going to need to be the guy who's putting in all the buckets. In the future, they're going to have Kristaps coming back. They have Cantor right now, who's a very good offensive player. Knox looks like he's going to be a scorer. Trey Burke's a scorer. So this guy's not going to need to score. He's going to need to space the floor and play defense, and I think he can be that player.
Yeah, and Jake, I when they drafted him, I thought they were picking him as a shooter, basically. That's it. He shot 44.3% from three on 7.6 attempts in college, which is pretty remarkable, honestly. I mean, shorter three-point line, but last year as a rookie, he didn't shoot too hot from three. It was 32.4%, which isn't too hot. I mean, hopefully he gets better. That's on a very small sample size, only 1.5 shots per game, but I can't hate on Ron Baker for his low shooting percentages and a small sample size, and then give Dame a pass. So hopefully he's got to get that up.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I guess something I that just came through my mind a little bit is we touched on the new coaching staff a little bit, but for a lot of these guys in the backcourt, with Fizdale coming in, he doesn't really care that Moutier was the 7th pick. He doesn't care what Ron Baker's been about or where he was drafted. I mean, we could throw Alonzo Trier in there. We'll circle around him later because he's a little bit too hot of a topic in Knicks land right now. But hey, if you're Damian Dotson and you can bang a corner three and play some defense, you're going to get some looks. I mean, so Ken, I think that was a great point by you for young Dame Dot. And speaking of defense and corner threes, this is a quick one. And again, Kenny, this is your bread and butter, your birthday friend, Lance Thomas. If you'd like to explain that for the friends at home and just tell them about Lance, because I think you're going to say all of our thoughts here.
Yeah, and like Greg said about Ron Baker wishing his friend a happy birthday, I got a birthday shout out from Lance Thomas, so he's been my favorite player ever since. But also, like, I do genuinely like his game. I think I've said in other podcasts that I picture myself as a 3-and-D guy, and Lance Thomas is that guy on the Knicks who's, he's been a 40% plus 3-point shooter the last several years, and he's been known as the guy who's been guarding the best wing on the other team. So like he'll go out there and he'll guard LeBron, he'll guard Giannis, and he'll do all the dirty work. And I think the biggest thing that he adds to this team right now is just a veteran presence. Everyone has always been saying that he's a guy who does things the right way. I know a few years ago, like when things were kind of falling apart, I don't know if it was under Woodson or just a little bit after that, but he was injured on the bench, and like there were stories that people were laughing at the end of the game while they were losing, and just turned around and was like, guys, we're losing, like get your heads in the game. And like that's the kind of leadership that you need on a team like this, particularly with a lot of young players and not a lot of veterans. So I'm hoping that he sticks around for a little bit. I know we've talked about him potentially being a salary cap casualty next year, but I just genuinely like what he brings to the game, both on the court as, not in a huge role, but coming off the bench, playing some defense, hitting some threes, and then the off the court stuff as far as being a leader. So appreciate you, Lance.
I always laugh because it feels like there's 2 games a year where Lance Thomas comes in and plays Giannis or he plays LeBron for like 35 minutes, and you're like, Lance, dude, we really appreciate you. And then they end up hitting the game winner on him, and it's like, all right, see you in 2 weeks. This is the player that I think I'm most excited about from this list, and it's Noah Vonleh. And I'm going to make a bad comparison first, and then maybe a good comparison. We'll see. But let's start with the bad. There was one guy in last year's camp who didn't have a guaranteed role that I was just looking at the roster, and I was like, I think this guy is going to get some run. Last year, I was unfortunately right about Jarrett Jack. It just made sense to me. They needed point guard play. Jarrett Jack's point guard play was going to be better than a 19-year-old Frenchman on most nights, and Ramon Sessions. So we kind of fall into a same story with Noah Vonleh. The Knicks need bigs. And Kenny, you mentioned it previously, or depending on when these come out, when you're mentioning it now. But Noah, he looks ripped. He's a guy who came out early from Indiana, big-time prospect. It's his 4th year in the league. He's 23 years old. There's the biggest difference from the Jarrett Jack experience. But this guy found himself, he was on some really good teams in Portland where they kind of just asked their big man, whether it was a Plumlee or Ed Davis, to just kind of do their role for a couple minutes. This guy has had some big games. It's been the classic Trailblazers, the 2 games that don't matter, like him and Shabazz Napier try to show the world that they could be really good if they got to play. On the reverse side of that, those games don't matter. But we've got a 6'9", 250-pound, 23-year-old roped-up big man on a team that's searching for big man minutes. Greg, what do you think about Big Noah?
Yeah, I mean, Knicks just waived Joe Kim, so Noah's officially going to make the team, I believe. So
Noah to Noah.
Yeah, we picked the right one in my book. Yeah, he's definitely going to get some time because, like we said, Porzingis is out. I mean, Cornette is not as good as Vonleh. You got Cantor. And then who are really the other big men? You're going to move Knox and Lance up to 4, play the 4. So there's just two big man spots, 48 minutes to go around in each. 48 times 2 is 96. So somebody's got to fill those minutes. So I think Noah Vonleh is going to be a guy. And like we've seen him beast some people, do some monster dunks during the preseason. So he does what you like to see. He's an exciting player.
Ken, I know you like a big man that likes to finish around the 10, and that is what he's been doing this preseason.
Yeah, and like Greg said, there's a lot of minutes to go around. So, and I think he's going to end up getting some minutes. I think the more interesting question is the same question that we asked in the Mitchell Robinson one, and we didn't even bring up Vonleh because that was recorded kind of a while ago, and he seemed like a guy who might not even make the team. But after preseason, it looks like he's definitely going to be on the team, and he could be a guy that steals those fourth quarter minutes, just because he is not as young and inexperienced as say a Mitchell Robinson, and he is less defensive. He has less of a defensive liability than a guy like Enes Kanter. So kind of in the same way that guys like Dame Dot could work his way into a steady rotation piece. I think a guy like Noah Vonleh, if he, goes out in his minutes and shows that he deserves more, he could end up being the fourth quarter guy for the Knicks in that center role, particularly with teams going smaller. He could fill that, that center role for the fourth quarter Knicks.
And yeah, we're talking a lot of high end, low end type deals with this. Again, someone like Ron Baker might play 10 games this year. He could play 70. Vonleh, yeah. I mean, talk about an opportunity and the coaching stuff I mentioned earlier. If you've got Fizdale coming in, you've got Kanter, who couldn't be played in the fourth quarter last year. His defense is so bad. Then a bunch of young guys. If you're Vonleh, this is your chance to make it in the NBA. You've got some really good. I mean, in 16 minutes last year per game, he averaged almost 6 rebounds.
Yeah, I was just looking at that. He averaged 12.8 rebounds per 36 minutes last season. That's pretty good.
So, and with minutes being needed on this Knicks team, you could see this guy sneaking towards 25 minutes if he really finds his role and maybe doing a 8-8. Which, hey, it's tough being a Knicks podcast sometimes and discussing some of that stuff. But 8-8 out of Noah Vonleh would be pretty big for this team.
Yeah, so, and I think another question is, how he plays is in a lot of ways, I think, going to determine the way that Fizdale goes with his team. Because if he can play a lot of minutes at the 4 position, then guys like Mario Hezonja and Knox can play a little more at the 3, and you can have a bigger rotation amongst your 4s and 5s. If he doesn't play that well, Hezonja's got to get bumped up, and Knox is going to get bumped up to 4, and they're going to go mostly with a smaller lineup. So I think he is kind of going to be a key piece in how the Knicks, their style and their play unfolds over the season.
Yeah, and Ken, I think that ties into Fizdale too. I think we complained about Hornacek's rotations a little bit. Fizdale is going to be doing a lot of experimenting with all these backcourt and all these front court options. So if you're Vonleh, if you can play a little defense and roll to the basket, you got a job, bud. The last big man I think we're going to bring out, a Commodore, hashtag Vandy, Luke Cornett, the fake unicorn. Is that a nickname for him yet? He 7'1". He plays mostly with the Knicks G League team. He comes up for his first game, and what did he do? It was something ridiculous, right?
Yeah, he blocked a bunch of shots and hit a bunch of threes.
Yeah, it was like the first player to have.
He had 11 points, 4 blocks, and 10 rebounds.
Right. So yeah, then I remember seeing Reddit posts saying, the Knicks have 2 unicorns and stuff like that. And it's like, easy guys, but
unicorn with a K.
Unicorn net. I like that.
Net.
Should you guys, maybe you need to talk me into this. Why am I not more excited about Luke Cornett? I mean, he he ended up playing in what, 20 games last year? In those games, he got 16 minutes. He shot 35% from three. Should I be more excited about Luke Cornett?
I mean, he could shoot it. He's spreading the floor, but I mean, he's just not a stereotypical big man. So I don't know if it's. I don't know. It's tough.
Right.
'Cause you're thinking that maybe his best case scenario is Myers Leonard, and I don't think you want Myers Leonard on your team.
Yeah, and I think kind of Knicks fans have just based on that first game where he came in hot, and I think, like you said, people were talking about it was the first time ever or something that someone had 4 blocks and 3 3-pointers in their debut. And then after that, I think he went on to average in his 20 games, 0.8 blocks total among all of his games, including the 4-block game. So I think Knicks fans think that he's a better post defender than he actually is, just based on the hype behind that first game. And I think that's going to be his problem, is because he can play a perimeter big man, but what the Knicks need alongside a guy like Enes Kanter is a guy who can defend the post better. And I'm not saying that he couldn't be a valuable piece, because I think he could be a decent piece. I don't know that he's going to get more than 10 to 15 minutes run per game just to give someone a breather. But I just don't think he's kind of going to be a stable rotation piece just due to the makeup of this team.
Hey, if you could give me a 7-1 Steve Novak from that one season, we'll take that. But Steve Novak was shooting about 78% from three that one year the Knicks were doing well. That stat's not accurate, but
pretty close.
It felt like it though.
Yeah.
open Steve Novak.
Was he 10? He's a big guy.
Yeah, he was up there, and I think that's funny that Cornette is clearly listed as a power forward, even though he's 7'1", because his body is just not up for a lot of the NBA big men. Yeah. Which circles back into this whole defense conversation that we've been talking about.
He had a couple good games. It looks like he had a game last year where he had 23 points, a game with 18, and a game with 17. So like he had a couple decent games, but I just don't know that he's ready to be a mainstay in the Knicks lineup.
And at the same time, I guess that's why I keep kind of laughing under my breath. If this guy can come in and shoot some threes and block some shots, you could see Luke Cornett getting a lot of minutes. I think we've kind of covered the grab bag pretty well. I think there's the one hot button guy everyone's been talking about, and I guess I'm talking myself down on him just because of how many bodies there are in the backcourt. But Iso Zoe, Alonzo Trier, the undrafted rookie from Arizona, he was a big prospect. Ends up going undrafted this year, which is one of those, hey, hopefully it makes the scouts end up looking bad that everyone ended up drafting their guy instead of this guy. He's had his moments in the summer league. Ken, I'll start with you because I know you've been big on him. What do you got for me on Iso Zoe?
And I don't know that I've been big on him in a positive way. I think that, and pretty much all these players have been just trying to down talk the Knicks overreactions for guys like Ron Baker in a positive way and Emmanuel Mudiay in a negative way. But so Trier, he can score. He can definitely score. I'm just not sure what else he can do. He's a big guard, and I think that helps him because he doesn't have to, try to fit into the point guard role. My problem is I just don't know how well he fits into the development of other players if he's just going to be Iso Zoe and go Iso and other people are just going to stand around and watch, because he's not good enough to do that. He's a good scorer. He's not good enough to be a ball stopper and make the rest of his teammates, who are all young players in the midst of their development, and have them just watch him do what he's going to do and then run back and play defense. And I think some of the stuff with the draft, I think he had some drug test issues. I don't know if it was marijuana or performance enhancing drugs. Should probably have looked into that before the podcast, but
hopefully both.
My computer's too slow to do it now, so I'm just going to throw both of those out there as possibilities. But the guy deserves to be in the NBA. I just don't know if he deserves the hype that he is getting as, a potential star. I think, and we talked about this in the offseason recap pod, but I think his best case scenario is to be a bench scorer, which I don't think is a bad thing. A lot of guys have made their careers being a very good bench scorer. I think of guys like Jamal Crawford and Lou Williams, and not so much as a scorer, but Andre Iguodala has been like a sixth man extraordinaire. And those guys are very good players. And, I think that having that as, the goal that you're setting for yourself is a realistic goal. And I don't think it's kind of too negative to say that, although I think, being a bench player doesn't necessarily excite people as much as him potentially being a star.
Yeah, so he got suspended for like a good portion of the season in college for taking a banned substance. So
Osterine. It is a performance enhancer of sorts. It's supposed to be a muscle recovery drug, but which kind of odd. And they said it was trace amounts. I don't know. It's one of those things I think you can look back and either laugh at or be like, no, shoot, Lonzo Trier was doping in college. Greg, what do you are we? Is there going to be a game this season where we say Alonzo Trier is the go-to scorer for the Knicks?
I mean, it could happen. They said that they're going to use all 45 days of his on the two-way contract. So I don't know when exactly he's going to get called up. I think that the Knicks have their team, so they don't really need him that much. They might start needing him when if the season goes south, then they'll call him up to see what he's got. But otherwise, I mean, maybe he showed enough in the preseason to get some time right away. It's tough because the last year was the first year with the two-way contracts, and the Knicks just used them so differently than some other teams, where the Knicks just didn't call anybody up until the very end of the season. So now they got a new administration, so we'll see how they do it.
Yeah, I really like that point, Greg. That could be a huge factor for another guy we didn't mention is Isaiah Hicks. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they try to use those guys on back-to-backs or something like that. We'll see. We will see. Any parting shots before we call it on the grab bag app?
I mean, we'll just say Hicks looks skinnier, but I don't know. He probably doesn't have a long-term fit on this team, but he'll be good to eat some minutes maybe at some point, like you said, maybe on the back-to-backs or maybe at the end of the season.
And I think the last point that I want to make is Fizdale has come out recently and said that he doesn't want anyone on this team averaging more than 28 minutes a game. He says if you're playing more than that and you're not tired, then you're probably not trying hard enough. So that's going to open up, a lot of time for other players to get in. So any one of these guys could end up, being that Jeremy Lin who comes off the bench and, suddenly they have a big role on this team. So don't be surprised if that happens with any one of these guys.
Yeah, that's no one over 28 minutes. That's whew. That just had me have some interesting thoughts about the Knicks, but we'll pass on those for now. This was the grab bag episode. This is might be some deep track Knicks stuff for some of you people. Hopefully you like it, but yeah, a couple of these guys are going to get serious minutes. So let's we'll see who ends up being that guy during the season. I would say, I don't know. I'm picturing a lot of Vonleh, but enough from me. Thank you for listening. If you've been listening, we appreciate you. We've been doing individual player profiles. Check them out. And if you like what you're hearing, if you could give us a 5-star rating, we'd really appreciate that. So thank you very much. Let's go Knicks.
Knicks take. Scene.
And scene. Okay. Yeah, this is a baseball game, huh, Greg?
Dude, Garrett Cole sucks. Jackie Bradley Jr. is so bad.
How about that ball just bouncing?
Yeah.
That was ridiculous. Baseball is a pretty ridiculous sport. Just look at the green monster.
I can't believe he walked that other dude and then he just gave up with that. In
baseball, you have sacrifices.
Okay. I mean, do we want to do Zinger? I mean, I'm thinking it's only going to be like 10 minutes.
I don't know what we're really going to talk about with Zinger. I mean, I will. I just don't know what we're going to say. I'm going to say if he comes back this season, that'd be cool, but I don't want to rush him back because that would be not cool.
Yeah. Chance he can miss the entire season. Fuck. Yeah, I don't know. A Zinger podcast sounds kind of ridiculous, right? Because it would just be, we hope he comes back and looks good.
Yeah. But, like, on the same time, he's the best player on the team. So should we talk about him? Or should we just roll that into the preseason pod?
I don't know. Greg, any thoughts?
I don't know. What the I really hate Garrett Cole.
Yankees might sign him.
He's not a free agent.
I thought he was.
He's got another year. Corbin's the free agent.
At a funeral? Let's see.
Yeah, he's got another year.
Yeah, I don't think we do Porzingis. But he is the next best player.
We can have Greg talk about salary cap stuff and when they should re-sign him.
I guess we'll do a quick 10 on Zinger. Worst case, it's content.
All right.
All right. Now, hey, now, ladies. Yeah.
Is that the intro?
I love that they have projections for him, but all right, I'm gonna roll. We'll see where we land. Welcome back, Talkin' Knicks, player profile and projections. Today we're talking about a real treat. Unfortunately, we might not get to taste too much of this treat this year. We're going to talk about the unicorn, Kristaps Porzingis. We went back and forth about doing this, but he's our dude. And I think even if he comes back for 10 games this season, it's something we're probably going to want to talk about. And at least as Knicks fans, we're going to want to hope about. So let's talk some Knicks. I am joined by Gregory and Kenneth Poon, my brothers from another mother. And boys, Kristaps Porzingis. Let's just talk about it. We probably think he wins MVP next year, but
and this year.
there's a chance this year. No, I mean and this time I am going to toss it to Greggy first because we were live. When it happened, we saw Porzingis get hurt. Maybe we'll go back and get the clip, but you can basically feel Greg and my soul and Greg's soul leave our bodies as the big man went down, as what essentially was the end of a lot of Knicks fan seasons, because at least you had Zinger. The team was starting to lose a lot, but he was doing some really special things. I mean, Greggy, just talk me through Zinger. A little bit of last year, and I guess just where your head's at on the big man.
I mean, every Knicks fan loves Porzingis. The way he was carrying that team at the beginning of the season, when you get the Knicks' hopes up again, starting 14-10 for the third straight year, and you're like, wow, we don't even have Melo. This guy's just carrying the team, and he was just going for 30 pretty regularly. And you could see that, wow, this is the type of guy who could be the franchise player of a good basketball team. And, he was dunking on people. He was hitting threes. He was hitting open shots. He was posting people up. I mean, you saw that he had some work to do, which that That's another bad part about the injury is that he doesn't get to do that work. But, he's got a lot of room to grow, but he's already very, very good. So I think he's going to come back strong. Love the guy.
There you go. Kenneth?
Yeah, and you see that he's in the gym all the time. They have a lot of I don't know, his social media manager or something is always posting videos of him putting in work. So you like to see that. Like Greg said, last year he really did some very special things. He was the leading scorer on the team with I think 22 points. He was averaging about 2.5 blocks. He was leading the NBA in blocks when he got injured. All while shooting, I think, 39.5% from three, something in that area. Yeah, 39.5% from three. So he truly is a special player, and because he's a 7'3" guy who is able to do all of this stuff that you're not used to seeing from a guy his size. You're not even typically used to seeing a guy his size in the NBA. He's the tallest guy in the NBA, I'm pretty sure. Him or Boban. But it's just kind of ridiculous the stuff that he's able to do, and the athleticism that he has at that height, and the way that he's able to move at that height. So like you said, his injury really kind of put the end on the Knicks season last year when we thought, the playoffs are out. We're not going to make it. I think the hope is this year that, maybe he comes back. And I said on the offseason recap, that would be the best case scenario, is that he comes back and just plays a few minutes just to get confident playing in game situations on his knee. And that way he can go into offseason and be like, okay, I know I can do this. I know I've played in games and I've tested my knee and I'm confident in it. And I think that's just the hope for this year.
Yeah, I think any format where Porzingis is on the court this year, Knicks fans are going to be stoked. And I call me crazy, call me maybe, but I think this guy sees the court this year. Is that just too blind and optimistic? But I don't know. I mean, he got hurt in early February last year.
February 6th.
February 6th.
Pulled it up for you.
If we're being exact. So yeah, and I mean, it'll be really interesting with the rehab and how it's going.
So I pulled up Jabari Parker. He got injured on February 8th, and he came back on February 2nd of the next year. And then Zach LaVine got injured on February 3rd and came back on January 13th the next year. So what's the deal with February? But yeah, but the one thing about Porzingis they said is that there's not much there's no protocol for a 7'3" guy tearing their ACL, so they're taking a potentially different approach. So we'll see how it goes. But hopefully he'll be back. I think he should be back, even if he only plays a few games. That's more than nothing.
And looking at I just randomly pulled up a website with a bunch of NBA players and their recovery times from ACL injuries, and don't know how accurate it is, but I'm just going to go down kind of the list of a few of them. Jabari Parker was 10 months. Danilo Gallinari was 20 months, but that was partially because he was injured in April. So a year for him would have been right around the end of the year. And then you guys have Lou Williams and Ricky Rubio, who are both guards, were out for 9 months. Derrick Rose, when he got injured in 2012, he was out for 16 months. So it's really looking like the shortest one on here is 7 months for J.J. Hickson in 2014, and then the longest one is Gallinari with 20 months. So it's looking between around the 9 to 14 months time span in a normal situation. Not including the Danilo Gallinari with the 20 months, but it looks like it is possible that that Kristaps will get back out there. But like Greg said, it's kind of uncharted territory with his size and the tension that he puts on his joints, just based fully on the leverage and the length of his limbs. But like I said, I think for the Knicks, they're not really going to be playing for much, and they're going to be able to take it very slowly with him. Like I said, I would like to see him on the court, though, just to build up some confidence in his knee in game action before going into the offseason.
Yeah, it just seems like, and I get it, and I think you bringing up Boban is kind of huge, Ken, because we do forget this. The guy's nickname is the Unicorn, but we forget why. He's 7'3". He moves like a small forward when the only other 7'3" guy in the league, A, kind of looks like an alien, but B, moves like the oldest school of centers that you can imagine. They're going to be careful with him, but I mean, I believe in youth, which he's got that. He's 23. And I mean, the medicine and rehab just keeps getting better and better. I mean, in my head, I'm picturing him being ready to play 12 months out. They bring it back super conservatively, but man, I really think if he could get 10, 15 games with Knox and Frank at the end of the year, I mean, I think that just gets you so much more excited for the next season, which I know isn't necessarily the Knicks management job, but hey, it could help that free agent class if they see Kristaps Porzingis back out there banging, blocking shots, hitting threes. Knox has developed, Frank has developed, and that's our game plan right now. The Knicks have been open with it. We're going to have one more good draft pick this year, and then it's going to be signed in free agent. So I don't know. I kind of need to see this guy on the court, and I maybe it's just mental stability as a Knicks fan, but.
Yeah, and last year, when he got injured, the Knicks proceeded to finish the season 6-21, and included in that 6-21 span was in the first 14 games after he got hurt, they went 1-13, which is bad,
real bad.
Yeah, and like both of you, I want to see him out there. I just don't want them to rush him out there, and I have to imagine the Knicks know how important of a piece that he is, and they're going to be extra cautious with him, particularly knowing that we're not playing for anything. So if he's out there, it's great. If he's not out there, I have to imagine it's because he's not ready, which is the better thing to do for the team if he's not ready.
Yeah, and I'll try to wind it down with a slightly positive spin. Kristaps' numbers per month last year, he came out super hot, so October kind of spiked it. But his points per game went down last year, and a lot of people talked about the size of his body and the build. And I mean, we talked about obviously the injury, and he can't be playing basketball. But this is a really good opportunity for him to work on his upper body, his core, and kind of become, if the Knicks are going to be right, whether it's next year, 2 years, whenever it is, ideally, Kristaps is the 5. He can be a dynamic, just mismatch nightmare for any team. So, hey, we're seeing the videos of him in the weight room. Hopefully, maybe this is a good time for him to bulk up and get big, dog.
And another thing I want to add that's, not – I think it's kind of a little bit of a positive thing, but it might sound a little more negative. In the worst-case scenario – he is not super reliant on athleticism because he's 7'3". He's able to just shoot over defenses and block shots. So in the worst case scenario where he doesn't, heal back to 100% of the player that he was, he's still going to be a very, very good player.
I like it. Greg, anything?
Knicks need Porzingis to be good.
Hot take.
So hopefully he'll be back.
Yeah, and we were a little hesitant, but I don't know. Maybe in the back of my head, we needed to talk about the big man to stable ourselves down after
it's the unicorn in the room.
Talking about Luke Cornett's and Ron Baker's and I mean Moutier, who ranked almost last in a lot of stats last year. It would just feel huge for the organization if this guy could come back, and I hope we see it. I think I would rarely speak for Knicks Nation, but we really hope to see this guy next year. So on that note, for Kenny and Greg, thank you for listening to Talkin' Knicks. We've been banging out the PPPs. If you've been listening, thank you very much. If you haven't, give him a shot. You can Netflix, bang through them, and you'll have the full scouting report on the Knicks team going into the season. Leave us a 5-star review. We appreciate you guys. Let's go Knicks.
Mixtape.
Stop.